My lords, ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back to Transport Fever 2. Today we're on the mountains just outside of Long Eaton, having a little look into Long Eaton from our vantage point, and we can see we've got our first skyscrapers appearing on the map over there in Long Eaton, so that's a sure sign that we are progressing ever onwards through the eras and the years as we modernise our cities and they get that more modern aesthetic to them. So previously we'd set up a line down into Long Eaton that was delivering bricks, and it took, well, the less said about the setup on that, I think, the better. I have allowed the line to bed itself in, and it does seem to work, reasonably well. It gets a full load, well, it does now. What I did is before we had 12 carriages, I've reduced that down so we have a total train capacity of 80 units, because I found that when the train was returning to the brickworks up by Epping, it was picking up, or there was about 80 units of bricks on the platform ready for it. So to save it from hanging around, I've just reduced the consist size ever so slightly to match the current production in terms of how long or how much production is generated in the time it takes a train to complete its journey, which, as I said, is about 80 units. So we've synchronized that rather nicely so the train does not have to wait around any longer than it absolutely has to do. So that train is doing pretty well for us, and we're keeping the town of Long Eaton reasonably well supplied with bricks. The problem we have is the journey time and the fact that Long Eaton doesn't actually require a whole lot of bricks at the moment. Hopefully, as Long Eaton continues to expand, that demand shall grow ever higher. So what's the plan for today? Well, let's start by bringing up our user interface. We're in February of 1921. We have just under 33 million available in our bank, with a cash flow as it stands of around 4 million over the last 12 months. We have shipped just under 33,000 passengers, all of which are through our bus lines, and just under 250,000 units of cargo. So we're growing nicely. So what we're going to do today, well, I'd like to get some food down here into Long Eaton. We have the food production plant here, and we have this line here ready to go. This is the one where the bricks are delivered in, if you remember. We also have the farm just here outside of Axbridge, which should be reasonably straightforward for us to connect into. Now, in terms of getting this food then into Long Eaton, it's only a short distance from the industry, so I think we'll just go ahead and use some trucks to deliver the food into Long Eaton. That way we're not crowding up this station down here with yet another train delivering a good into Long Eaton. So the less train traffic we can keep down here, the better it's gonna be. So let's make a start, and we'll start up at the farm itself. Now, we only have one industry that requires the grain, and obviously that is the food production plant, so we can get away with just a single track station, but we do want to make sure we have it at the maximum default length, which is 320 meters. We can of course increase that manually if we need to, and let's make sure we have that connection to the industry straight away. And I say we'll have the station right there, nestled against the side of this road that runs past the industry between Axbridge and Herne Bay. And we're going to rename this to the Axbridge Farms. And we want to make sure we can connect this to our existing track system. And we're going to do that via another bridge, either this way, looping like this and coming into here, or over the top and looping into the northern end of the station. I think looping into the northern end would make the most sense, so that's what we're going to do. First of all, we want to give ourselves a bit of a runoff from the platform. just for any future expansion. We are limited this way because of the angle of the station. We can maybe only get 3 or 4 extra platforms down here before we start encroaching on the river. So we want to make sure we have expansion room on this side as well, should we need it. We might not, but let's not rule anything in or out at this point in time. Okay then, so even the tightest radius bridge is going to give us a problem in terms of conflicting with our existing bridge, which is a little bit awkward. So what we might have to do is take that back just a fraction and try again. And if we look there, we can almost get it in. We don't want it to snap parallel. That's not what we're looking for. Now it is going to be a slow bridge because of the tight radius that we're having to live with or having to impose upon our bridge. But I think if we go to something like that, it's going to look a little bit strange because it's quite low and sunken into the river. So any heavy rainfall down here and the trains on here could find themselves in a spot of bother. But obviously that is not modelled in the game, so we don't have to worry about that. But if you're a real life engineer making these bridges, that I'm sure would be something you're thinking about. And then now that we are straight and level with the track here, we can snap parallel. And what we want to do is drag this out just to offset the worst of this gradient here, because as we can see, our bridge is, several meters lower than our existing infrastructure, so we don't want to come up too sharply and too quickly. We don't want to make our trains struggle any more than they absolutely have to. Now what we want to check here is that we can put in a second radius, because it might be too tight. Nope, it's going to let us do it, so that's fine. We don't have to do that right now, but I just wanted to make sure we could do that before we went any further. And this track, it's going to run alongside this one. We'll keep it separate, so this becomes a bit of a heavy freight line. At the moment, we only have one train running down here anyway. But what the heck, it's nice to have some nice quad track through your map from time to time. But we're not going to have it run separate the entire way. We will look to merge in somewhere between where we are and this level crossing over here. So let's see if we can do that now. And we want to get a nice speed on this if we can. Okay, that's being a little bit weird. I'm not sure why it's not allowing me to do that there. But it looks like we've got a good speed there. 65 miles an hour I saw here. 67 up here. So that is reasonably rapid. And it's fast enough for our purposes right now. And then of course, now that the first track is laid down, we can duplicate it all the way back to the station by the farm. And now we're coming to the bridge, so we go over, creating a double track bridge there. And we want this to come in prior to the station, just to make sure we do have enough room for that expansion if we need it. And I think that's going to work just fine. So we need to put signals down on there. So the first signals we will take care of are the ones on approach to this junction just here. So we'll have one just before the switch there. And we'll have a pair of signals there and there, which protect the incoming or the southbound traffic. And then what we want is a set of signals around about here, which will clear the junction block for anything else looking to head northbound on either track. From this point out on this track now, we can just put down their own dedicated blocking signals. And once again, I'm going to keep these few and far between. We're not going to have an almighty amount of trains down here at this point. And of course, as I mentioned previously, in the not too distant future, we will be upgrading to the modern electrified signals, and we want to leave ourselves with as few semaphores as possible, just so it doesn't take us a full day and a half to go through our map and replace all of our existing semaphores. So there we go, we've connected in, so we're obviously going to share this line all the way down here through this tunnel, and now we need a station somewhere around here. Now this station does have to be somewhat large. While we're not going to have anything running down into Long Eaton, eventually we will have trains delivering food into Herne Bay, into Axbridge, and finally into Epping. So ideally what we're looking for is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 platforms. 2 for the incoming raw materials and 3 for the outgoing finished products to the various cities. So then, we want a 5-track station. We'll go 320 meters once again, and we want to set this in such a position so that later on, when we need to, we can stable some of the trains that are coming in and out so that the raw materials trains have plenty of room to get in onto their platform and top up any dwindling supplies that may be happening over here, which is going to prevent our trains from getting loaded that are heading to the 3 cities. Right, so that will do. So I think then what we'll say is these 2 platforms here will be the ones that handle the incoming raw materials. So to make sure we have room to stable up any trains that are going to the cities, we're going to have a nice long run off here. That way we've got plenty of places to park up trains entering these 3 platforms over here. So first of all, we're going to come parallel with our existing network, something like so. In fact, no, that's the wrong track, although we can just go back as far as that. Like, that's better. That's what we want it on the outermost of these 2 platforms. Now these signals here, they are going to have to be replaced because we're going to have a junction over here now. Now it's going to be relatively slow because we don't want to encroach into the tunnel with our junction. And in fact, let's just pull that back just a little so we have enough room to put a signal in just before the entrance to the tunnel. And now we can bring this second track into that second platform, like that. And of course, we're going to need a diamond here, so both platforms are easily and readily accessible for the future trains that are coming down here, like that. And then we want to do some signal work. So we want 1 on approach to the diamond. We want 1 to clear the diamond. And I say we'll have another block around about here. And then we of course want to protect the junction itself. So we'll have signals there protecting the approach. We'll have 1 just there protecting the approach from the north. Now we can't put a short signal in here because it goes against what I like to do. So we're not going to be able to do that for now. However, soon we will unlock those modern train signals. So as soon as we've unlocked them, we must remember to put down a clearing signal inside of the tunnel. We can clear coming to the south, so we've got that there and that there. And that should be more than enough for what we need right now. And we should have enough space in here to be able to stable some trains into these 3 platforms to keep them out of the way of the raw material trains. Okay, so that's nearly finished. What we need to do now is, well, first of all, name that station, and then of course we need to make sure we have a working connection. So we'll put the road outside of our station building, and then we shall swing this road around, but not like that, like that. That's going to give us a pickup point just there, if you see. And we know, well, we can guarantee that is going to be close enough to the station that this serves this industry, which it certainly does. So that's good. What we then want to do is put down a truck station outside of this industry. And in fact, while we're here, let's go ahead and upgrade this road capacity here. Like that. Now we can put down our truck station, and we'll put it in this, in fact we'll put it in this dead area right here. We only need one platform, but we will keep two just for symmetry purposes. And we'll have it set back somewhere like that. And this will be the Long Eaton food plant as well. And where does the food need delivering to? Let's see if we can spot it. Oh, it's right here. So we'll look to use this drop-off point here, because this one already provides the coverage that we're looking for right here. So there's no point building a second drop-off point if we can utilize existing infrastructure. So now we want to set up the line itself. So this is going to go from there, and you're that sort of colour. We'll keep that to load if available. We'll not change anything there, but we will make sure they're only taking the food. And we want you to come down here to drop off just there before heading back out, which you're doing. There's a little crossover there, but I can live with that. Shouldn't cause too many problems. We're not going to have a whole host of trucks running down here because the demand for food is going to be quite low in Long Eaton because it's the fourth commodity, so it's not going to be as excessive as the fuel or the tools. And where is the line? Let's just quickly give it a more fitting name. And this is Long Eaton Food Supply. Just to mix it up just a little. Okay, so that's the line set up. We're going to build its own dedicated depot, simply because this one is a little bit too far away. So we'll give it a dedicated depot down here. And if we can nestle it in like that, that would be nice. This one only needs a small road connection. The speed doesn't matter there. As soon as they've cleared that, they're never going to go back onto it. And we can purchase ourselves a few delivery trucks. Now, if you remember at the end of the last episode, we did unlock a new vehicle. It was the Schneider PB2. So we'll come back to that in a few moments. For now, let's focus on getting this line operational. And I'm going to go ahead and say just 3 of the Benz tarpaulin trucks is going to give us what we need. We'll give them a paint job, assign them to the line. Now, before we set up the train, let's have a look at this new bus that we unlocked. So at the moment, we are using the Gaggenhaus for our buses. So if we go to passenger, so this is what we're using at the moment, and this is what we have available. So it's ever so slightly slower actually, and has reduced power, but it does have an extra seat available. It's also ever so slightly cheaper than the Gaggenau to operate, but there's very little in it. And I'm going to stick with the Gaggenau because that extra speed, while it's not much, it is something. And I don't want to sacrifice one passenger space just for, in fact, rather other way around. I want to keep the reduced capacity in favour of the ever so slightly faster vehicle. Okay, so over to here. Now we can set up this line. So we're coming from Axbridge Farms, we're that colour. Here we do want to make sure you have a full load, and we want you to wait as long as it takes basically to get that full load. You're loading wheat, you're coming down here, you're dropping off there, and then you're heading back. Nice and simple, nothing too complicated in that. Okay, the train. So we also unlocked the crocodile last time out. As we can see, it's got a nice amount of power. It's also got ever so slightly more tractive effort than the A35. However, as we can see, it does cost an extra £600,000 per year to operate. And it also costs an extra £3.5 million for an outright purchase. And we are losing a little bit of speed. This one can only do 47 miles per hour. Our wagons can do 50. So for the time being, we are going to stick with this A35. So let's colour that. add it to the locomotive, and then cargo, we want the gondola, and we're going to go for the default level of 12 carriages on this vehicle. We're going to buy, for now, just one of those, and the reason we're only buying one to start with is because this food production plant will only be supplying one city, the city of Long Eaton, and as we can see, Long Eaton, it doesn't need a whole lot of food, so the production isn't going to be massive over here yet. Eventually we will need more trains running down here, of course, once this starts supplying in other cities such as Axbridge, Epping, and, well, obviously Herne Bay, but that's all for a future date. For now, this should do us quite nicely indeed. Is the train on her way out? Yes, she is. Let's go down here and have a quick look as she departs the depot. It's a very bright looking train. You certainly wouldn't miss her coming down the tracks at you. I'm sure we can scuff up some of this paintwork over time. Obviously the maintenance is only set to normal, so the train appearance will degrade over time. In fact, let's just follow in nice and close here. A nice artistic look at this train as she sets off on her way towards Axbridge Farms to pick up the first full load of wheat. Okay, you're not going the way I anticipated you would go. I thought you would take this little connection line here and head straight up there. Clearly not. What do I know? I'm sure you know best, Mr. Train Signaller. Or indeed Mrs. Train Signaller. It does appear instead we are coming down into this station first of all before heading back. Well, that's okay. Long Eaton has just unlocked its 5th commodity, which as we can see is machinery. That's not something we have tapped into yet in this playthrough, so we can't do anything to meet that demand, and the demand for now is going to be very low anyway. But we are now supplying 4 of the 5 that Long Eaton is requesting, and we're doing a pretty good job actually at supplying them. 60% satisfaction on the fuel, 80% on the tools, and just 20%, oh, it's only adding 20% from the bricks, but as we can see, the percentage we're hitting per year is pretty damn high. Probably about 93% or so right there, maybe even higher. We've just unlocked yet another bus, but as we can see, it is still a slow one at 22 miles per hour. However, if it has vastly improved or increased seating capacity, then it's something to bear in mind, so let's check it out. It does indeed. It jumps up to 11, so that's a much more noticeable jump in its capacity. The power is a little bit reduced, however, I don't see that being too much of a problem because our cities, they are built on rather flat level ground, so we don't really need, or we shouldn't suffer from that slight reduction in horsepower, although it will be ever so slightly noticeable when they're when they're setting off from a standing start. However, I do like the look of the increased passenger capacity, and what the heck, we've had the Gaggenauers running for several years now. I think it's time we did invest a little in our buses. So let's select all of our bus lines, and that's all 5 of them. Let's go ahead, replace all of those. We'll replace them all with the Daimler Deck seat car. And just to help our cities out just a little, let's go ahead and jack the maintenance up to very high. This might turn all of our bus lines into loss-making ventures. However, we're going to see a reduction in the noise pollution in Long Eaton and Axbridge, which is also going to help when it comes to the city growth. So where is our train now? Well, it's bright enough, so if we can't see it, that means it must be in this tunnel somewhere. Let's see if we can have a peek down the tunnel and Oh no, we can't do it like that. That's just sent us on top of the tunnel. No, we don't have a high enough LOD and draw distance to see all the way through the tunnel, but it must be in there somewhere. Or it could be right there on the bloody platform. Okay, so it's heading back to the farm, ready to pick up her first full load. In the meantime, what we're going to do is we've done some track work. So I'm just going to do some smoothing around the sides of the tracks that we've laid down, just to blend it all in with the scenery a little more. And around here where we've put this new road, or expanded the road size. There we go. Just blends it in ever so slightly. Okay, that's fine. Those trees are far enough away from the tracks that we don't need to worry about them. But we do have extra track here, so let's just smooth that off right there. Are those trees a bit close? And let's just remove them a little by having a small brush size. That's paint. That's what we want. So let's just knock that size down a little. Run it straight up the middle. And just take the closest trees away. Just to open it up a little bit like that. That looks nice. That should be fine. And we have nothing down here. But what we do have is some terraformed land. So we are just going to do a little bit of smoothification. That's easy for you to say. Along here. And in fact what I might do is just here, just where we have this rather steep drop off, I might paint that, so instead of having mud and ballast, we have a concrete sort of effect. So it's built on almost like a concrete retaining wall here. So let's see if we can achieve that. Paint tool, concrete. No, that's not an option. It'll be asphalt. Which one do we want to use? Let's just take that down just a touch. Do we want that one? Or do we want that one? Which one looks the best? Ooh. If that was a bit lighter, I quite like that. It's a bit too dark though, I think. That's like a road surface. Which one? I think the latter one. This one here. So we're just going to run this along here. Just to give it a look of, well, concrete. Now the terrain here is a little bit weird, as we can see. It's gone a bit jagged. We might be able to smooth that off. However, I don't think we will, but we'll give it a go. And let's just put some concrete down here as well, underneath the bridge. And there we go. That's now supporting this a little better. Are there any sort of fence assets we could sneak down there? Well, we do have fences, but they're wooden. Do we have railings? We do. Can we put them in without a collision? I'm going to say no, we can't. Oh, yes, we can. So how about we do something like this then, if we can get it where we need it to be. Now it was better that way around. And just put a little bit of a fence along here. Now these don't snap, as we can see, so getting them perfectly lined up is nothing short of a nightmare. Especially when you've got a semaphore signal right in your face. Now look at that. To get that one, we're going to have to offset it a little. Hopefully you won't be able to notice that quite so badly on a cab ride or what have you, but we shall see. How are we looking? We're getting close. You don't have to do it the whole way, just a little bit, just to add a little extra something there. Yeah, it doesn't look too bad. That one's a bit odd, but it'll do. Okay then, ladies and gentlemen, I think that's where we'll call a close to proceedings today. What we'll do is, this train is about to receive a full load. We have plenty awaiting pickup. So once this train departs, we'll take a ride on our new train and it's not too long of a distance, so we will ride it all the way down into the food plant just down here, and that way we can have a look at this. This should hopefully be quite scenic, so we shall see. So let's hop on board. So there we go, sat on the front of the locomotive. We're still getting loaded now with what the heck. We've had some sort of a landslide here. I can't be dealing with that. I think we're going to have to do some terraforming here, and that should get rid of that. I'm not sure what's caused that to happen, but we've made it go away rather easily. Let's just, while we're here, let's just finish that off. Yeah, that was extremely bizarre. Clearly some sort of a landslide had taken place in between construction and arrival of the train, but we've managed to recover it nicely. So I hope you have enjoyed today's episode and you continue to enjoy the series. If you have, then please consider hitting that like button down below. It really does help, and it does mean a lot to yours truly. If you haven't subscribed, then you could also consider subscribing to the channel as well, so you're notified for any future video releases, and you can follow along this series and the other series that we are currently running, and you'll be kept up to date when the videos are released. But for now, ladies and gentlemen, all that remains for me to say is, as always, take very good care of yourselves. It's ta-ta for now.